I'm not Pressley by chance. I'm not Pressley by mistake. I am Pressley on purpose. I'm not Pressley by chance. I'm not Pressley by mistake. I am Pressley on purpose. And this episode of Pressley on Purpose is brought to you by Queens Royale, my lifestyle brand for women and men who wear their confidence out loud every single day. So, hey, y'all, it's your girl, Adyna K. Pressley, and welcome to Pressley on Purpose. Listen, you already know this is not the buttoned up CEO version of me. This is the real me, the healed me, but the still human me, the sister friend and the good girlfriend version of me, the funny, around the way girl, big sister who done lived some ish me. In here, we talk about stuff I don't generally post, the moments that break you, the moments that build you, and the moments that lead you towards the healed version of you. Every week, we're getting into purpose, reinvention, boundaries, healing, and choosing yourself loudly, boldly, and without apology. So get your good going tea, get honest, get ready, get comfortable, because we're rising and we are rising on purpose. So, hey guys, I just wanted to say last week I didn't do an episode of Presley on Purpose. Unfortunately, I had got some devastating, terrible, traumatic news. I know I sound a little dramatic, but that's how it felt in the moment. Unfortunately, my uncle dad, Arrington Sturdivant, passed away suddenly. He was only, I want to say 77 years old. I think he was 77. But he looked good, looked young, had no health issues. You couldn't tell him he wasn't a fly guy. He was the coolest dude ever. And so that hit me like a ton of bricks because I totally wasn't expecting it. And it really threw me for a loop. So I really needed the time off to come to grips with it, to reflect, to just unplug and come to grips with the whole devastation of the news. So last week, I decided to not do an episode and really just be with my family, and then also to be in my feelings and deal with this huge loss of mine. But I will say this, I am in good spirits and I am at peace because one of the things that I did realize when it came to the fact that he's no longer here, I really had to sit back and reflect and recognize that my uncle, for many years, he really mourned the loss of his wife. She had passed many, many years ago, but he never gotten over the loss of her, because when I say that man loved his wife and his wife loved him, they were truly made for each other. And I remember him telling me that she said to him that God made her especially for him. So, in my opinion, I feel like now he's happy because he is with the love of his life finally. So that actually brings me peace and solace, knowing that he is right where he wants to be, and that is with the love of his life. So, with that being said, I just want to say thank you to all of the messages of condolences. The heartfelt sincerity of you guys' messages really warmed my heart. Myself and my family truly appreciate all of the support that we've gotten the past week. So, again, I just want to say thank you. And, the interesting thing was, as I was going through the process of reflecting his loss, one of the things that I realized was when my uncle, well, first of all, my dad passed away when I was 10 years old. So even though I knew my dad and I knew my dad loved me, I didn't have him for very long. So I never had the opportunity to really have him in my life for him to witness, me getting married, the birth of my children, school plays, graduating high school, graduating from college. I did not have him in my life during those times, you know. And so when my dad passed away, I took on my uncle, and that's the reason why I call him my uncle dad, because he was the only real male figure that I had in my life that really was close to me. My mother did get remarried and I had a stepdad, and he was cool and everything. He did what he was supposed to do, but he wasn't my dad. He wasn't my blood relative like my Uncle Arrington was. But as I was thinking about that, I was like, oh my goodness, I believe that I had daddy issues. Like when I really, really thought about it, I was like, I think I had daddy issues. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I'm going to talk about it from my perspective, but I did look it up, and actually, I said, let me look up, what are some of the characteristics of women who have daddy issues. And some of them did apply to me, not all of them. I ran across a article, and it was like 9 things women with father wounds do without realizing the harm. And when I read that, I was like, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And it's a real thing for me because when I thought about myself, um, I was like, some of these actually apply to me. So I'm going to read to you guys what the 9 things are. So one is they people please. 2, they have difficulty attaching. 3, they struggle with their neediness. 4, they cycle through periods of depression and or anxiety. They feel stuck in low self-esteem. They feel disconnected from their intimate choices. They have trouble trusting people. They struggle with being faithful. And 9, emotional dysregulation plagues them. Now, when I read through those 9 characteristics, I would say a good 7 of them applied to me. I can definitely say for me, I had a hard time trusting people. And I had a hard time trusting people because it wasn't that it wasn't because of my dad leaving me, because this article also applies to dads that left him. And yeah, my dad left me, but he left me because he passed away. It didn't leave me to run off to be with another and start another family. He left me because he passed away. But I did realize that when I was going through my relationships, I always had a hard time trusting men. And I think the reason why I had trust because I didn't have a father figure at the time. And again, when I say father figure, I'm talking about my father. I did have a stepfather, and like I said, he did what he had to do, but he wasn't my father. He was a good provider. He loved my mom, but he wasn't my father. So I didn't have that father daughter relationship, that loving, supportive, safe, nurturing relationship that girls have with their dads, because they always say that your dad is your first love. Now, I will say this: my dad was my first love, because I do remember my relationship that I had with him. I do remember him loving on me. But again, it was only for a short period of time, because then him and my mom did break up. And but he still would come around to come see me and my brother. He did make a conscious effort to be in our lives. Having him around in a 2-parent household setting with my real parents, I didn't have that. And that's something that I think every girl wants in her life. And I want to say to every woman who has their dad, I wish that for myself so badly. because I always wondered what it would feel like if he was still here. I always said, well, first of all, I always said my dad would be so proud of me. I always said that if my dad was here, I would so be taking care of him. So just like my uncle dad lived upstairs, and it was funny because my mom always used to say to me, what are you going to do with your uncle? When I leave, what are you going to do with your uncle? And I used to say, well, who says I'm in charge of all the old people? But because that's who I am, of course I would have taken care of my uncle. That's what I do. So I always say that if my dad was still alive, he would be right here with me and I would be taking care of him because that's what I do. I did have a problem with trusting people. And I think I had problems with trusting men in my relationships because didn't have, I didn't know what it looked like to have two loving parents, faithful parents that's been together forever, like, my cousins with their dad. He's another one that is very special in my life, my Uncle Charles. They have their dad there, and he loved their mother for all the years that they've been together. They set the example, and even though I have them to look at as an example, again, it's very different when you don't have your own dad. So that was one of my problems that I knew I had a problem with. I also had a problem with me having a big personality. I have an extremely big personality. I am an alpha female. I recognize that. But the difference between me and the average alpha female is I know how to turn it off. I know when to turn it on and I know when to turn it off. And to be perfectly honest with you, you are safe with turning it off when you're in a relationship that makes you feel safe. So when you're in a relationship that you don't have to wear the pants in the relationship, you're not the one in charge, then you can fall back and you can be in that soft girl era and you can be fuzzy and pink and wonderful and wear high heel shoes and put your pretty dresses on and just be, you know? So I do know how to just be. I do know how to do that. But in many of my relationships, and I'm saying it like I had a ton, but I didn't. I didn't. But in my past relationships, I was always the one that was in charge of the relationship. When I was married, I was the one who handled the household. I was the one who took care of the kids. I was the one who made the decisions. That's what I always did. When I got in my next long-term relationship, again, I was the one who handled the household. I was the one who made all the decisions. I was the one that took care of everything. I was the bigger breadwinner. That's just what it was. So that's always stuck with me. So when I finally got the opportunity to be in a relationship where I don't have to be all of those things, I had a chance to step back and say, "Ooh, wow, I like it here. I really like it here." It's a wonderful feeling when you don't have to be the one that's wearing the pants in a relationship. So that was one of the things that I had to learn how to navigate. But again, it was easy once I recognized it. Once I saw it, like, oh, okay, this person is stepping up. This person is taking a lead. This person is allowing me to fall back and be in my soft girl era, making me feel safe in the place, making the decisions. And it felt wonderful. It felt wonderful. But another one of the issues that they mentioned on here was self esteem. So believe it or not, believe it or not, I did have self-esteem issues. And sometimes you have self-esteem issues and you feel like you're not good enough or you feel not you're not pretty enough. Now, let me preface by saying this. When I was younger, I didn't have those issues, but when you do get older and you have children, your body starts to change. I'm not looking like the same Adyna, or as they used to call me, AD, when I was younger and when she was this big and, and very stylish and things. Your priorities change when you become a mother and you get older and your responsibilities change, and all the things that I used to be able to do for myself I couldn't do because I had grown up responsibilities and being a mom. So my priorities shifted, and that caused me to have self-esteem issues. And then, of course, too, gaining weight after having my children. I was always a, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was like somewhere around there. And now you have children and you're like a 10 and a 12. And that's like weight you wasn't used to. I had issues with that. I started to have self-esteem issues. And that was something that, I don't know. I remember one day, I think it was my mother. She said to me, she was like, "Girl, you need to get it together. Like you need to spruce yourself up and get yourself together." And that one day made me say, okay, I understand that I have responsibilities and I have to put my children first, but I do need to take care of myself. So one of the things that I always made sure that I did for myself was always got these nails done, as you can see, and still do. And I always made sure that I got my hair done. And I always make nowadays I make sure I got a good wig because I my hair is natural now. And then I started doing that. And then my daughters would be like, you should try to wear a little makeup and you should try to do a little this. And then the self-esteem started to come back. And then also too, when I started really putting myself first and going to the gym and being mindful of what I'm eating. And then I started to lose the weight. And even though I'm a thick chick, and I always say this, I love being a thick chick. I never want to be skinny. I love the skin that I'm in. My confidence started to build, and then I was good with myself. So I also feel that as you get older and you grow and you become in tune and in touch with yourself, that all changes as well because your mindset changes and you start thinking differently. Your perspective on life starts to change. There's other things that's more important to you that matter. So all the superficial stuff that used to plague your brain with causing you to be insecure about yourself totally goes away. And I always tell people too, the older that I get, the better life gets because you're older, you're wiser, your perspective on life changes. A lot of things that used to bother you don't bother you anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. I could care less what anybody thinks of me or anything somebody says about me. That's not my problem, that's theirs. Like you really get in a place where you are so content with who you are. And like I said, when you're grounded, when you're anchored, and when you're anchored, nobody can't move you. That is the best place to be in your life. And that's where I'm at right now. So that's a wonderful feeling. And then when I thought about some of the other things that they talk about, they also talked about, they said it in a nice way, but they was actually saying being promiscuous. And even though that wasn't one of my issues, but that is one of the huge ones when it comes to daddy issues because women have a tendency to look for love in all the wrong places. And I'll be honest with you, I was in a place where I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And I know that's a song, but it is so true. You think you found love with somebody, and sometimes it might just be infatuation. Sometimes it may be just lust, and you think it's love. I have been in those shoes as well, realizing that, yeah, this is not really love. I'm with this person for the wrong reasons. And I think one of the great things about that was I was able to recognize it and step away from it. Because one thing about me, I've always been strong minded, regardless of how I may have struggled with certain things. I always had my own head on my shoulder. I made my own decisions. I was not easily influenced. And I think that's one of the things that I think helped me, even though I did have daddy issues. But again, when you think about it, when you recognize it and you come to grips with it and you face it, you can navigate it. So I think that's one of the great things that I was able to do too, because it was like, okay, this is not right. This doesn't feel right. I shouldn't be here. And don't get me wrong now. There has been times where I may have been in a relationship that I probably shouldn't have been in and I probably shouldn't have stayed in as long as I did. But again, you recognize when something is not right for you in your own time. Nobody can't tell you anything. And I'm the type of person, nobody can tell me anything. I have to learn things on my own. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And I stand in it. I'm okay with that. So that was another thing. And then they talked about anxiety and depression. Honestly, that wasn't something that I went through. Depression, no. Anxiety, yes. And I went through anxiety when in one of my relationships, and this was a long-term relationship, he was a busybody. He was a busybody. And And again, that could mess with your self-esteem, because now you're like, all right, he out there and he running around and all this stuff like that. And it's like, well, what does she got that I don't have? You have those things going on in your head that messes with you. I know that was something that I had struggled with as well. So yeah, I did suffer from anxiety. And then I knew that as the relationship was coming to an end, and I was stressing out with that because I knew that eventually I was going to have to make a move. That gave me anxiety. But then, once I made that move, that anxiety went away. So, so yeah, so that was another point on there that I struggled with. And I don't know, I don't think there was any other ones that I can think of, but those were like the main ones. But I say this to say, we all may struggle with daddy issues. And in my opinion, it's okay as long as you can recognize it, and as long as you can make choices that work for you to rectify that. Because you can also have daddy issues from a good way. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to always be bad, but you can manage it, you can change it, you can change the type of relationships that you want to be in, and especially you can change it as you grow. Because I feel like when you get to a place where you know what you want in a relationship, and you are intentional in making sure that those are the characteristics that you seek in a person, and you have those conversations with the person, you can get to that place where you're in something that is healthy, when you're with a person that is your person, and that person makes you feel safe in the relationship. So I do believe that, because I'm one of them. So so yeah, that is my episode of Pressley on Purpose. I just want to say thank you so much for always being here with me. Again, this episode was brought to you by Queens Royale, my clothing brand. That's queens-royale.com. If there's anything about this episode that you like, let me know. If there's anything you want me to talk about, let me know. Again, this is your girl, Adyna K. Pressley. And when you get a chance, please like, share, subscribe, because I think this episode is speaking to somebody. So make sure you share it. Make sure you like it. Please, please, please subscribe. And I will see you on the next one.